Hello everyone, this is Dr. Sandeep Madan. I am anatomy faculty, and as we are aware that the exam is changing and the new exam that is next is basically clinically oriented exam, and all the basic subjects even for anatomy or physiology or all other basic subjects will be asked in a clinically integrated manner, right? So what we are going to learn today is basically the clinical integration of anatomy part. And before beginning the session, let me tell you that gone are the days of age old methodology, gone are the days of traditional teaching where only the facts were thrown without any concept building, right? So here I am with you guys to discuss the clinical application of the anatomy, and today I have taken a topic from neuroanatomy, right? Let us begin. Let us look at the question and let us dissect the question and see, uh, look at the approach. So the question says a 55-year-old right-handed man comes to the emergency department because of the recent onset of severe throbbing right-sided orbitofrontal headache and the diplopia. His other medical problems include poorly controlled hypertension and chronic tobacco use. Neurological examination shows that he is awake, alert, and oriented and follows both simple and complex commands. Testing of the cranial nerves reveals intact visual acuity bilaterally, and visual fields and the optic fundi are normal. Examination shows anisocoria, right pupil being dilated and non-reactive to both light and accommodation. He has evidence of both vertical and horizontal diplopia, and the right eye is down and out with ipsilateral ptosis. So all these are very important findings. The rest of the neurological examination is within the normal limit, and CT angio was done, which shows the large aneurysm in the posterior fossa. But for you, a normal CT angio has been shown here, which has been labeled like ABCDE. But the question says which of the following identifiers from the angiogram indicates the cerebral vessel which most likely to have an aneurysm which is causing this patient's deficits, right? So this is the question where we have been given certain inputs, and this is the angiogram. Let me zoom in and show you. This is the angiogram where you can see this is the vessels and the branches which have been marked A, B, C, D, E. Now what is the approach to this question? Let us discuss the anatomy behind it. Let us discuss the anatomy behind it. So right now what we are looking at is the brainstem, and this is medulla. As we know, we have pons and the midbrain. These are the three parts of the brainstem, and from these three parts the cranial nerves exit, right? So from the brainstem, from 3rd to 12th cranial nerve nuclei are located in the brainstem, and the cranial nerve begin from here, right? So they are uh, I mean the component of midbrain, pons, and the medulla. Now, right now we are looking at the detailed view of the brainstem here, and you can see the different cranial nerve nuclei are present, and from these cranial nerve nuclei, the nerves are coming out. So let us see which cranial nerve is coming from which part. So 3rd cranial nerve and the 4th cranial nerve are actually coming from the midbrain part, and this is the 5th cranial nerve, and the 6th, 7th, 8th cranial nerve. These are present in the bones, and 9 to 12th are related to the medulla oblongata. So this is the distribution. The 3rd to 12th cranial nerve nuclei are present, right? After having understood this, let us discuss uh, the course of the 3rd cranial nerve. And here when we can see the ventral aspect of the brainstem. Right now what we are looking at, this is the pyramid part, this is the pyramid part here, right? And here what you can see, this particular part is the medulla. Just above the medulla will be the pons, and just above the pons will be the midbrain. Do you appreciate this, right? Now these two are the crus cerebri, or which is a part of the cerebral peduncles, right? And here you can see from the midbrain coming out is the oculomotor nerve, and this nerve which is coming from the dorsal aspect of the midbrain and winding around and exiting on the ventral aspect is the trochlear nerve, right? So this is the 3rd nerve here, which is exiting from the ventral aspect of the midbrain, right? Once it comes out of the ventral aspect of the midbrain, it passes between the two arteries. Now this is again very important aspect. Let me show you. So here what we can see is the medulla, pons and the midbrain part, and we can see here the third nerve is exiting between the two arteries. So one artery is above and the other artery is below. The above artery is PCA, the below artery is superior cerebellar artery. PCA, posterior cerebral artery, superior cerebellar artery. Between these two arteries, our nerve is passing through. Our nerve is passing through. Okay. So after passing through the between the two arteries, then it proceeds and approaches the cavernous sinus. Then it approaches the cavernous sinus, and when it approaches the cavernous sinus, this is the cavernous sinus bilaterally present, and here we can see these are the nerves, third, fourth, and the fifth trigeminal nerve, V1 and V2 part, not the V3. And here you can see the sixth nerve also passing through the cavernous sinus. So all these nerves are passing through the cavernous sinus. Once they pass through the cavernous sinus, the third nerve and the third nerve, fourth nerve, V1 and the sixth nerve, they will pass through the superior orbital fissure. This is, they are passing through the superior orbital fissure and they are reaching the orbit. Once they reach the orbit, the third nerve is going to supply the muscles, extraocular muscles. Which extraocular muscle will supply the third nerve? We know SO4 and LR6. Rest everything is supplied by the third nerve. So third nerve is going to supply all the muscles except superior oblique and the lateral rectus, right? So this is the course of the third nerve. Let us summarize the course. When you summarize the course, this is the whole course. The third nerve beginning from the midbrain, going and reaching between the two arteries, then approaching the cavernous sinus, then it actually divides into two routes and passes through the superior orbital fissure. With the help of these two routes, it eventually supplies all the extraocular muscles except for SO4 and LR6, right? In addition to it, third nerve is also carrying the parasympathetic part. But the third nerve carrying parasympathetic part is going to supply which muscle? It is going to supply the sphincter pupillae muscle and the ciliaris muscle. Okay, sphincter pupillae muscle for the light reflex and the constriction of the pupil, and the ciliaris muscle for the accommodation reflex. Okay, now this is what we have learned about the third nerve course. Now let us discuss what will happen in case of injury to the third nerve. If the third nerve is gone, levator palpebrae superioris, which is supplied by the third nerve, will be paralyzed, leading to ptosis. Similarly, as I told, the sphincter pupil is supplied by the third nerve, it will stop working and it will lead to the dilatation of the pupil. Also, there will be loss of light reflex. And ciliaris muscle will be gone, leading to loss of accommodation reflex. So basically, if you combine the information, the pupil is dilated and non-reactive to the light reflex as well as to the accommodation reflex. What we can say, it is a fixed and diluted pupil, right? And there will be unopposed action of the SO4 and the LR6. So this unopposed action of LR and the SO muscle will take the eye into which position? That is what is called as down and out eye. So if you combine the information, that is, you can say, if you combine this concept of the nerve injury, the third nerve injury will lead to what? It will lead to that ptosis, ipsilateral ptosis, down and out eye, and the fixed and dilated pupil, all on the ipsilateral aspect. Now, why I have written the word compression here? Because the third nerve lesion, what we are discussing, is because of the aneurysm of the vessel, and it is because of the compression. But sometimes, like in case of diabetes, right? So what happens is because of the microvascular involvement, then that particular lesion, it does not involve the pupil, because the pupil is supplied by the parasympathetic fibers, and the parasympathetic, they lie on the peripheral aspect. So remember, parasympathetic, P for parasympathetic, P for peripheral. Right now what we have discussed is the compression injury, and it is involving the pupil as well, right? Now let us talk about the vessels which are actually going to be, you see, they will show the aneurysm and they will lead to the compression of the third nerve. But before going to those vessels particularly, let us have a look on the circle of Willis formation. So this is two vertebral arteries which are coming to make the basilar artery, which will divide, bifurcate to posterior cerebral artery, right and left posterior cerebral arteries. This is what is internal carotid artery, which will divide into ACA, that is anterior cerebral artery, and MCA. And this is what we are looking at, is the posterior communicating artery. And this is how the circle of Willis is formed, right? And then we have the cerebellar branches as well. From where the cerebellar branches are coming, this is what we are looking at, is the superior cerebellar artery. And what is this is the ICA, that is anterior inferior cerebellar artery, which is again a branch of the basilar artery, right? Even the superior cerebellar is also a branch of basilar artery. But the PICA, that is posterior inferior cerebellar artery, is a branch from the vertebral artery. Fine. So this is the information about the you see the vessels which are actually present in around the circle of Willis. They are going to supply the different parts of the brain and the cerebellum, right? And here I have highlighted three vessels in the red color. What are these? Posterior cerebral artery, superior cerebellar artery. Okay, that is why we have highlighted, because these are the vessels between which the third nerve is passing through. And because any of these artery, if it shows the aneurysm, it will lead to the compression of the third nerve. And we are going to get these features in the patient, what we have already discussed, right? But why I have highlighted posterior communicating artery in red? Because third nerve is very close to the posterior communicating artery as well. So even in case of posterior communicating artery aneurysm, okay, on its course, the third nerve may get compressed. So you may get compression of the third nerve feature even in the posterior communicating artery aneurysm. So let me show you how. Here you can see the third nerve which is passing between the two arteries, that is posterior cerebral and the superior cerebellar artery. And this is posterior communicating artery which is very nearby third nerve. Are you appreciating this? Is this part clear? So what we have learned about the third nerve course, its territory, distribution, and the injuries. If the injury is there, what is going to happen, and which vessels are involved? These three vessels that I have described here. Now let us go back to the normal CT angiogram. Now let us compare with this circle of Willis part. What are the vessels here? The A artery here is nothing but the basilar artery. This is the basilar artery, and it is bifurcating, that is B and C are posterior cerebral artery. Let me zoom in and show you. This A is the basilar artery, this is posterior cerebral artery, this is superior cerebellar artery, right? And these are the parapontine branches and the ICA branch is there. So these are the branches of the basilar artery, this E and F. But right now, as we know, our third nerve is passing between these two arteries on the right side, because this is the right here, and here there will be the third nerve passing between these two arteries. Now out of these four arteries, only three have been marked, B, C and D. Sorry, left PCA. And what is D is the left superior cerebellar artery. What is B is the right PCA, and this is which has not been labeled is the right superior cerebellar artery. Now in this patient, the features were on the right side. So either right superior cerebellar or right PCA can be the answer, or maybe the right posterior communicating can also be the answer, right? But in the given picture, in the given question, according to the angiogram, here what we can say, the B is our answer because this is only labeled here. C and D can lead to the third nerve compression, but they will lead to the third nerve compression on the left side. Then the patient would have presented to you on the with the left sided features, right? Not the right sided features. Is that clear? I hope you have understood the concept, right? So this is how we should actually learn the clinical anatomy. We should learn the anatomy, then we should be able to integrate into the clinical side. We should be able to apply our basic anatomy knowledge into the clinical aspects, right? So I hope you loved the session, I hope you understood it, and stay tuned for such sessions in future as well. Thank you so much.